right. All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Welcome to In Flint with me, Melissa Mays, and I'm a Flint resident. I run What Are You Fighting For since January 2015, and I'm operations manager at Flint Rising. Today, we have a very special show, so we're going to give people a few extra minutes to come into the stream, so that way they can ask questions, because we have a very special guest and a very important topic right now that's going on. And there's been a lot of confusing, conflicting information, and we just want to make sure that everybody has the ability to ask questions and get the most accurate and up-to-date information. So if you are just joining, that is great. But we are going to go ahead and give folks a few minutes to pop in. And say, once you come in, say hello in the chat so I can see that you're here. Also, if you have questions, yes, absolutely, please put them in the chat. And our special guest today will help us answer as best as possible. And today's show is about Flint's lead service line replacement program and property restoration program. So happy Saturday. I hope everybody's having a good day. It's, an overcast October, but hey, it's not snowing. So there we go. And it's also not 90. So we're going to do a little fun chit chat until we get into the meat of the show, which is quite a bit. But just in case people are wondering, today is day number 3,466 in the ongoing Flint water crisis. So a lot to cover. And if you've been with me on my previous shows, we talk a lot about what's going on in Flint as it pertains to Flint residents, us, and also the rest of the country and the world, because of things like this historical lawsuit settlement that we're going to talk about today. We've set the precedent about for the entire nation and the world to, 1, check your water quality, 2, check your plumbing materials, 3, update your laws, 4, start to focus on public health, maybe. And also to talk about, lead in the water. And in Flint, lead is not the only contaminant in our water, but it's one that there's legislation around it because our laws are extremely outdated. And we're going to wait until a couple of people hop in. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will try to answer them as quick as possible. And then we will, in just a second, bring in our special guest today, which is a big deal for me because I'm a nerd and she's kind of a superhero to me. So, I'm pretty excited about today and hope you are too. So, just pop in, say hello, and we'll be with you in just a moment. And thank you guys for being here. Okay, that was a quick break. All right, I just wanted to make sure everything was working and everything was shared out. Please share this. And also, too, if folks aren't watching live, I always try to check up on the comments and look for additional questions. And you can always enter them in the video comments, and I will check them. I always recommend don't Facebook message me because I don't get alerts on my personal page, but yeah, absolutely. So please reach out if you've got questions. But I just want to say a big thank you to the Urban News Station for giving us a place to have these discussions and for actually helping with this idea about what do we do about this misinformation, because there were a few community meetings where elected officials had said some things that weren't quite accurate as for what was going on, weren't up to date with the lawsuit settlement. And again, today's discussion is about the lead galvanized steel service line replacement program, the lawsuit settlement from 2017. And the ongoing progress with that, along with the property restoration. So your sidewalks, all that stuff, yards, all that. This is not about the civil cases or the class action lawsuits, money damages. So if you have questions about that, your guess is as good as mine. No, absolutely reach out to your civil attorney, your class action attorney with those questions. And we'll try to do updates on that as well once there are updates as we're moving forward with claims. But with no further ado, we are going to introduce our special guest. I got to meet this amazing human September of 2015 as she and her team came to Flint. And it is Senior Lead Attorney Sarah Tallman from the Natural Resources Defense Council, who has been a staunch advocate, has not given up on us with this lawsuit, as well as protecting our rights, and also having a huge hand in changing the laws like the Michigan Lead and Copper Rule with the things that we were able to get done with this lawsuit. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring Sarah on, and Sarah's going to give us an overview of the program itself. So if you have questions in the chat, and then I'll read them out to Sarah. But yeah, I just want to welcome and thank Sarah Tallman for standing up for us, but also being here on her Saturday with us.
Hey, Melissa, great to be here. And thanks everyone for joining us online. Really glad to have this opportunity to talk about the program and our perspective on what's going on with the settlement in our long-running case against the city of Flint and Michigan state officials. So like Melissa said, my name's Sarah Tallman. I'm an attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council based in Washington, D.C. And we have been working with Melissa and the ACLU of Michigan, as well as Concerned Pastors for Social Action, on trying to make sure that the water in Flint is safe to drink, finally. So I'll start with just an overview in case folks aren't familiar with the history of our involvement in this matter. So as Melissa said, we brought a lawsuit against the city of Flint and Michigan state officials back in January of 2016. And the goals of that lawsuit were to ensure that the city of Flint complied with the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is the federal law that is supposed to protect Americans and their drinking water. So we wanted the city to fix the way that they were testing and treating the water. And importantly, we wanted to get all the lead pipes out of Flint, especially lead service lines, which are the pipes that run between individual homes and the big distribution pipes that run down the streets. So that's called your lead service line. It can be made of lead, and some people's homes, it can also be made of copper or galvanized steel or some kinds of plastic. But if your pipe is made of lead, of course, it can leach lead into the water as water travels from the water treatment plant into your homes and out of your faucets and kitchens and bathrooms and other locations. So we filed the lawsuit back in 2016 and ultimately reached a settlement of that lawsuit in March of 2017. And for purposes of this conversation today, I'll focus on the lead service line replacement program, which was part of the settlement in that case. So way back in March of 2017, the state of Michigan agreed to pay up to $97 million to the city of Flint. And the city of Flint is required to check homes in Flint to see if their service line is made of lead. And if it's made of lead, to replace that service line for free at no cost to the Flint resident. And after they're done doing the construction work at the home, they are required to restore the property, meaning fix the lawn, fix any broken sidewalks or driveways or curbs that were damaged as part of that process. So the city of Flint was required to finish that work initially by January 2020. Ultimately, they have been delayed and consistently missed deadlines associated with that program. So the city is not yet done with its obligations to find and replace lead service lines in the city of Flint. So what's going on right now, and in particular, you may have seen in the news or heard about an August 1st deadline. So after the city of Flint missed deadlines and deadlines and deadlines to finish excavating and replacing lead lines, the court set another deadline, which was August 1st of this year. And they were required to finish one part of the program, which is doing what's called the excavations. So they dig a big hole in people's lawns to check the line to see if it's lead. So they were required to finish doing those checks. And for any home for which they found lead, they were required to finish replacing that line. The August 1st deadline did not apply to the property restoration. So the property restoration has a deadline that I can talk about later. But August 1st was a deadline to finish the pipe excavations, the digs, and the replacements. You may have heard that the mayor has stated that the city has met that August 1st deadline. And what I can tell you is that the data that we have seen and that the city has produced to us have not shown that they have actually met that August 1st deadline. According to our analysis, which is based on reporting from the city has remaining obligations as to about 200 homes. And the city has in fact conceded that they have remaining obligations to many of those homes. It may be that they need to actually do a dig at that home, but they haven't gotten the appropriate permit. It may be that they need to do continuing outreach to the residents of that home to try to schedule the work, or other obligations relating to kind of customer outreach or actually doing the dig or replacing the pipe. So our position, the position of NRDC and Melissa and concerned pastors and ACLU, is that the city has in fact not met that August 1st deadline. We are working with the city's lawyers to try to address discrepancies in the data and to focus on those remaining about 200 homes to make sure that that work gets done as soon as possible. So I'm going to talk about a couple of other questions that Melissa sent me that have come into her. So what is the current status in the court case? And you may have seen that we were in fact back in court last fall. We filed a motion because the city again had missed deadline after deadline after deadline. So we filed a motion to hold the city and the mayor in contempt of court for continuing to violate the court's order. As part of the settlement agreement way back in 2017, the court found that the settlement was fair and reasonable and in the public interest, and he incorporated it into an order, which means that everything the city agreed to do in the settlement is in fact a court order that's judicially enforceable. So when the city violates that settlement, they are in fact violating a court order. So after the city had continued to violate and violate again, we sought to hold them in contempt of court. And again, our goal in doing that was just to get the work done. We had tried our best to work with the city cooperatively and informally to resolve disputes. But at the end of the day, we want the work done so that every Flint resident gets the benefits of the agreement that are guaranteed to them by the federal court. So we went back to court and said, look, the city hasn't done this big chunk of work. After we went to court and after we had a big hearing in court several months ago, the city finally and belatedly rushed to finish that outstanding work. So we said, okay, the city finished a piece of the work that was the focus of our motion, but it's still important to have an additional incentive for the city to comply with the rest of the settlement agreement. So there's still a live issue in front of the court, and that is whether the city should be required to pay for additional time that they are causing everyone, the lawyers, to undertake to tell them to follow the law. So the city won't have to pay anything if they just follow what they're supposed to do. But we have asked that if they continue to violate again and again and again the requirements of the court order, and we have to take them to court and we have to spend time forcing them to do what they're already supposed to do, that if they do that, they should be required to pay the other side's attorney's fees. The court has not yet ruled on that, so we're waiting for an order from the judge on that issue, and we're going to continue to remain vigilant and push the city to make sure that every Flint resident gets the benefits that are owed to them under the agreement. So folks might be wondering how you find out if the status of your service line is on a list or if it's already been done. One option is to call the city, and we can identify the number and email for the Fast Start or Get the Lead Out program. The other way, and Melissa can maybe put this in the chat, is to email our team. So we have an email account at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. Again, that's flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. And that will go to our team, and we can cross-check your address against a big list of addresses that are entitled to work under this agreement. And we can tell you what the city's records say about whether your home has been checked for lead, what they found when they did that digging, whether they say they've done the work or they still need to do the work, and what the status is of property restoration at your home. So another question is all the work done yet? Are we finished? The answer to that is no, we're not done yet. And we're going to continue to work until everything that the city is required to do is completely done. So like I said, that first half deadline was August 1st, and the city was required to finish digging and checking everyone's pipes and replacing them if they're lead. It's our position that they're not done with that work yet, and there's still about 200 homes that need to be checked. The other half of the equation is the property restoration. And there are still many, many homes that are owed property restoration, fixing the lawns, fixing the driveways, fixing the curbs and sidewalks. The city is continuing to do that work, and we are negotiating with them to make sure that there's a deadline that is court enforceable for them to finish that work. So the answer is no, the work is not yet done, and we're going to continue pushing the city until everything that they're required to do is done. Another question we've gotten is the water safe to drink without a filter? So I can answer that from my perspective as someone who works at a public health and environmental advocacy organization. So we take a public health focused approach to our advice about health and safety. And we continue to recommend everyone in Flint to use a filter certified to remove lead to protect you from potential lead contamination in your water. And that is because the infrastructure work in Flint continues to be ongoing, and also because we continue to see some fluctuations in lead levels in Flint in terms of the 90th percentile lead level. That being said, the city's monitoring data has shown that the city's lead levels are below that 15 parts per billion, but that doesn't mean your water is safe to drink, because 15 parts per billion, that federal action level that you might have heard about, that is not a health-based level. There is no amount of lead in water that is safe to drink. And so we continue to recommend that folks use filtered water certified to remove lead to fully protect themselves and their families. So I'm going to pause there. I know there's been a lot of information, and so Melissa, maybe you can help me out and direct me to any questions that have come in or things that I didn't address that you'd like me to address.
No, I thank you, Sarah. That was amazing overview. And I know it's very complex and complicated, but breaking it down to what should have been done, what needs to be done, and what's still remaining is really important. And some of the questions, people were agreeing that there is no safe level of lead. Dr. Weaver asked, how do we get this information to media outlets? Because many people around the country thinks Flint's water is okay. So that I know is a big uphill battle, because it's not okay. And there's so much work that still needs to be done. And there's a lot of uncertainty during the construction period. And we talk about that a lot. And I know that our settlement provides filters and cartridge replacement and lead and copper testing to be done for free for residents for a year after the last pipe is replaced, because the construction can shake everything up, right? So we just have to continue to push. But yeah, at this point, I know there's been actual, and you can cover this too, that NRDC actually did just help with getting the Filter First program in Michigan passed. So that's, again, bringing lead in water back to some of the conversation. It doesn't impact our settlement here, but I do believe it's our work in the settlement and the community of Flint pushing to keep this in the forefront. Going forward, to say that this is still an ongoing issue and things aren't right. So I think that the question is, what can we do, as a community to help influence and push the city to finish the work, the state to put pressure on the city, because the state can do that, right? The state can absolutely put pressure on the city to get the work done. And that's possible, right? I know that there's also been some folks in Eagle, or, our environmental department, Eagles, formerly MDEQ, that had said at a meeting that we were at that they weren't sure that they could do anything about this, but that's not true, right?
That's right. That's not true. And we're actually coming up on an important milestone. So if you may remember, back in December 2016, Congress passed a law that gave $100 million to Flint for water infrastructure repairs. There is still available money under that law, which is known as WIN, WIIN, that the city has not yet used, but there's an expiration date on that funding. And that expiration date is December 31st, 2023. Now, EPA, the federal government, can extend that. But how does Flint get that extension? Eagle, the regulatory agency from Michigan, has to request that extension from EPA. And our understanding is that Eagle has not yet submitted that request to extend the funding another year. We think it's essential that the funding get extended another year so that millions of dollars are not left on the table that were specifically appropriated so that Flint could use that money to improve its drinking water infrastructure. So we hope that Michigan officials and Eagle are doing everything in their power to get that extension of the WIN funding.
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually, in the chat, am putting Eagle's Environmental Assistance Center number, and we'll add other numbers too if there's direct people. I know that they change a lot, so, and the departments shift. And yeah, Rhonda Kelso, good morning, cousin. She said she still doesn't trust, it's still MDEQ. He doesn't trust Eagle, but at this point, we need to put pressure on Eagle. Publicly make phone calls, emails, make statements, post and share for residents to see. Because a lot of the times we feel helpless because we feel like we're in the hands, of the people responsible for the entire, crisis. And not just that, but for it going on this long. Because originally, our program was supposed to be done in 2020, and there was great progress and we learned a lot. And things have hit a halt, but, again, we thank you for not giving up on us and for sticking with us. And I know that's not always easy. I don't know if anybody in the chat has seen me when I'm angry or frustrated, but Sarah has many, many, many times when I'm going, when I'm angry, I tend to talk even faster than I do normally. But it's not just me, it's residents reaching out saying, hey, this isn't right. Hey, can you help me? Hey, this. So it's, one, we have you guys and, amazing allies like in the ACLU of Michigan too, on our sides, but also we do have the ability to push them because we've done it before. And I think that, that's a big thing that we forget because it's gone on for so long. Like I said, at the beginning of the show, we're not at 9.5 years. So we have done all the pushing and all the work, but we can't give up just because it's, we're tired. And that we do have the ability to publicly remind Eagle and all you have to do is put in an application because I think that we had said, and like back in August, there was 17 million estimated left of the WIN funds. That's a lot of money to let just expire just because. So, sharing this information and helping to educate our community members and getting together and pushing is an absolutely important part. So yeah, and that's so Adam put in the chat, is it time for a second round of informational door hangers for residents to confirm the work done needed? So that's a great question. Did Eddie, well, that's another question. How many people saw, I'm going to put it up on the actual door hangers from, well, it was supposed to be done by May 1st, earlier this year. So I'm going to put this up. If it messes up, that's because it's me. But the door hangers that were hung on the door, supposedly saying that the work was done.
Yeah. Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Adam, for raising that issue. So as Melissa was saying, in the springtime, the city had to address its mismanagement of records of where it had done this property replacement work. So the city actually didn't keep good records of where it had already done property restoration work. So where it had already gone back to the homes to fill in the lawns with new dirt and sod and fix the driveways. So they actually had to go back in person to double check for thousands of homes to see whether more work needed to be done. And what they did was, if they went back to your home and saw that, hey, everything looks okay, the lawn has already been fixed, the driveway's already been fixed, and therefore we don't need to do any more work, then they were supposed to and did hang these door hangers that Melissa put up on the screen. And so if you never got one of those door hangers this spring or early summer, and you think that your home still needs some work done, that means that the city went back to your home, saw that, hey, there's still some damage to this home that needs to be repaired, and there should be coming back. But they might not have come back yet because they're not done doing all that work. So the question is, should there be an additional round of door hangers for residents to confirm whether the work is done or needed? And that's a great question that we can talk about with the city. Really, we want the city to just finish this work ASAP so it's completely done. But we can talk with the city if there's still a feeling of an informational gap about whether the city is in fact coming back to homes and which homes they still need to go back to. So that's a great question.
Yeah, and I want to note on here the phone numbers and the email addresses. And the phone number that is on the door hanger it goes to Rowe Engineering, who is the project manager for the, not just the, the lead service line and galvanized steel service line replacement, but also the property restoration, right? So that number is 810-410-1133, and you can call. And I've encouraged people that if you're going to call, please do it on speakerphone and have another device or a phone to record it, just so you have, record, and always write down dates, times you make these calls. Okay. So we just want to make sure, because there was a time there there was a news network, Scripps News Network, that tried to make the call and the phone line wasn't working. And if that happens, please reach out to us. Please let us know. And if you do have questions or concerns, the city's email address is gettheleadout, all one word, at cityofflint.com. Now, if you're going to email, I always say, make copies, paper trail, all that great stuff. Please include the NRDC and the email that Sarah had given out earlier, which is flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. Copy that email address on that email to the city, on the get the lead out at cityofflint.com. And that way we can make sure that we know that you've reached out. And in the same too, I'm also going to put up not just the door hanger, but I'm also going to put up the consent form. You might have heard it referred to as opt-in form. But basically it's the form that allows the city of Flint and their not just the city, but their contractors and subcontractors to come onto your property. And they should also go into your basement or wherever your water meter is. They need to dig up by the street to see what the city side and possibly your side of the of your lead service line material is, to see if it's copper or lead or galvanized steel. And then they're supposed to also go into the basement to check, because there used to be something they would do called a partial service line replacement, where they would replace just half or part of it if there was like a rupture or something like that. But we found that partial service line replacements can actually cause major problems. So when you're taking an old lead service line and connecting it to a new copper pipe, it can create an electrical charge that can, cause the more lead to release. So actually to cause the problem to get worse. So we've been working to ban that. We did ban it statewide. So that's amazing. The residents and all the allies, people working across the state, absolutely did a great job with that. But then also we're trying to work on it currently federally as well to ban that. But it does happen. It does exist. And if that's the case, we want that out, because the entire goal from the beginning was to get the lead out of the water and to get rid of these damaged and corroded pipes that were not damaged by anything that the residents that we've done. So, the city is responsible for replacing it and then restoring the property, and the state is responsible for paying for it. That's the, the kind of the gist of it, the way, Sarah that explained it early on in the show. So, so make sure you can go to the City of Flint's website, which, is Get the Lead Out at City of Flint. And I'll put that address on here to get this form. If you can't get on the website, or if there's an issue or you can't download the form, there's supposed to be an electronic form as well. But I'm putting the link in the chat, which is cityofflint.com/get dash or the hash. It's like get hash the hash lead hash out /. So a little difficult there. There, it's at the bottom of the screen. Look at that. It's magic. I'm learning. So go to this website, and then that's where you can download this form, or you can submit an electronic one to have them come out, or you can, just email. But the thing is to make sure people reach out. To say that, yes, I did this. And that's going to be my next question to you, Sarah, is people who have already sent in these consent or opt-in forms that allows them to come onto the property and do the work. If they've already sent them in, how do they know? Well, this is going to be a difficult question. Is there a way that they can track that to see, is there anything that we can find that will show them that they're on the list to get work done?
Yeah, so I would suggest at this point reaching out to our team. And again, that's flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. And we can look up your address and say what it says on our record. So even after residents submit the consent form, there's an additional step that the contractor has to do, which is to schedule the work. Because under the consent form, a person 18 years or older has to be home at the time they do the work. So the contractor comes back to your house, knocks on your door and says, hey, is Wednesday a good day for us to come back? And they try to do that scheduling work. They have to come back at least 3 times and call you the day before to confirm you will be there. So you should be getting that outreach, but it's important for our team to know if you haven't gotten that outreach, so we can try to close that loop and make sure that everyone who has submitted their consent form actually gets the work done. Because sometimes the contractors are saying, hey, we went back to the home 3 times, but no one was there, so we couldn't schedule the work. And so therefore we're done. We're not going to do the work. And we are trying to fight as hard as we can to make sure that every home that has submitted that consent form actually gets the work done. And I wanted to emphasize one other point, which is that every single home matters. The City of Flint is still finding lead pipes, even this year. So doing those checks at every single homes is critical to getting the lead pipes out. And even after this case and this settlement is over, there are still going to be some lead pipes in Flint. Some residents have declined to participate in the program. Some homes, have been abandoned at this time, but maybe someone will move in later. The City of Flint is still going to be required to continue to remove lead pipes after this settlement and this case is over. And that's because Michigan passed the strictest version of what's called the lead and copper rule, regulations that protect people from lead and copper in their drinking water. So the city is still going to have to be required over time to find and remove every lead service line in the city over time, because this is so important to get this potential source of lead out of people's water infrastructure.
Thank you. And that was going to be another question is, we do have people moving into Flint, and like, I know the hope and I think the goal at first was that when they got their water turned on in their name, that they would be able to see if their pipe had been replaced, or even to somehow make it available, like on the deed or with the county, or because at this point I'm having folks who are realtors say that they can't find the information to tell prospective buyers if their service line has been replaced yet. Should we just send those folks over to the Flint pipe removal at Gmail at this point?
Yes, I think that's the way to go right now. And again, this agreement is not perfect by any means. And so there are some gaps in, things that we would have liked to ensure or get. And there are some limits on, what we were able to accomplish. So it could be that if you just moved into a home, but the resident that lived there before declined to participate in the program, that the city has said, look, we're already done with this home because the resident, living there 2 years ago declined. We still encourage you to submit your opt-in form because the contractors are still out there doing work. And again, the city is going to be required to find and replace lead lines over time. But I think the best thing to do would be to reach out to our team. Again, that's flintpiperemoval@gmail.com, and we can tell you what the city's records show about the pipe in your home.
Thank you. And that was a main concern. A lot of comments because there was a block club meeting at the beginning of the week that the mayor had said, things were done. And there was also a lot of things said about money and this and that and all that. And the FAQs, the frequently asked questions about the pipe removal, we've been sharing those because they've been up since 2017 about the money. But the biggest issue, like with me and that I was hearing from residents, is that the fear that it's over and that if they missed it or if they don't know, that they're going to be left with lead. And especially with folks that, are frustrated because they did turn in the consent forms, the opt-in forms, or because they didn't know, because, outreach by the city hasn't been great, especially over these past few years with COVID and all of the other, chaos going on. And the fact that this was supposed to be done in 2020 and here we still are. But while it's frustrating, and I'm sure very frustrating for you guys, because I'm sure you'd like to move on with other cases and cities that need you, like we do, I always thank you for sticking with us, even though it's gone 3 years past and you guys are all basically a part of the Flint family, and, we appreciate you sticking by us, but the fact that you guys are hanging on to make sure that, everything is met in justice in this small piece, because Rhonda had brought up about the distribution mains that are leaking in the street and the drainage still slashing lead through. Yeah, that's a whole other part. And we have to work on federal funding to try to, get things like the distribution mains that lead up to our lead service or to our service lines and our interior plumbing, replaced as well. And that's a whole other battle. But the one thing that we could grasp onto with the existing, outdated laws is the service lines. And so we need to make sure that gets done and done right. So I think that that's been a big issue. And I appreciate you coming on today to clarify that it's not over, and that yes, even if the settlement ends up getting wrapped up one of these days, that it's still, you're not going to be stuck with the lead forever. And I always encourage people that who have, maybe if they did decline or the previous person or somebody else did decline, or that they weren't reached out to please reach out to reach out to you guys, but also to do the consent form. So yeah, just that encouragement. I appreciate you encouraging people, to that we still have to do work, but they're not getting left out. So that's been a big thing. And then also, I guess we should address the money situation, which you can explain better. The attorney's fees that were decided back in 2017 by the judge, because the mayor had said, brought up $895,000, and where did that go? So I guess I will let you address that little bit there.
Sure. Yeah. So the Safe Drinking Water Act and many environmental laws have something called a fee shifting provision. And so the laws allow citizens like Melissa, like ACLU and NRDC, really any person, if they identify a violation of this federal drinking water law, they can sue that violator to say, hey, you are not following the regulations for protecting people from lead in their drinking water. And if you bring that lawsuit sort of in the public interest and you're successful, there's a fee shifting provision that in general says that a successful plaintiff, someone who brings this lawsuit and is successful, the court can award them their attorney's fees to be paid by the defendant. So as part of our settlement agreement, well, of course, as part of the settlement, the defendants did not admit to any fault, but as part of that agreement, the state of Michigan agreed to pay the attorneys some compensation for their time. And again, that did not go to the plaintiffs directly. So there was no kind of payout to Melissa or to the concerned pastors. Instead, that went to the nonprofit organizations to enable us to continue to do this work on behalf of Flint and on behalf of other communities that are in need of low cost or pro bono legal assistance. And so again, the purpose of that was for our organizations to continue to do this environmental and public health advocacy that is part of our nonprofit mission. So that money did not come from the city of Flint, it came from the state of Michigan, and that was paid for work that we did to ensure that the city in fact agreed to replace these lead pipes. And this is sort of seems like old history now, but we had to fight and fight and fight in the crisis in 2016 to ensure that everyone had a filter, that those filters were installed properly, and that folks got the education that they need to be able to protect themselves and their families and to improve the bottled water delivery back in 2015 and 2016. And the city of Flint and the state government at the time fought us tooth and nail on all of that short-term relief. And so part of that funding for our organizations went for the time that we spent fighting to ensure that every Flint resident had the resources that they need during the height of the crisis back in 2015 and 2016. So yeah, Melissa, anything else I should mention about that?
No, just the way it was just thrown out, like there was some kind of mystery money somewhere that went to somewhere or something. I mean, we've heard, all the different rumors, and that's why I put up on the screen the NRDC's FAQ page about the settlement that's been up since 2017. So anybody can go to see all this. And also there is on the What Are You Fighting For Facebook page, the top pinned video is our very first town hall after the settlement in 2017 discussing these things. But yeah, I think that because a lot of time has passed since the settlement was done, and maybe there's a lot of people that don't know and people are frustrated, that it's easy for folks to throw out misinformation, disinformation, misunderstandings, or whatever you want to call it, wrong information to kind of divert from the fact that the city is not doing what they promised. Going back to 2017, and the fact that we were supposed to be done 3 years ago, and that we need to hold them accountable. And it's certainly not, myself or the Concerned Pastors Social Action, ACLU Michigan, or NRDC holding up this pipe removal and restoration process. So I just wanted to point that out, because that was what I got blown up with earlier this week, and then I blew you guys up with it because residents got angry because they're like, well, what's that money and what is he talking about? And so so that is a big point, is that we have to, like, what Dr. Ebert asked, we have to continue to push the accurate information out to keep the pressure on the people who did the work. Adam has a question. Is it possible that residents that originally did opt out no longer live at that residence, and the new residents moving in can get the work done? Or is the residence, the home itself, still on the opt-out list? That's a question.
Yeah, so I believe the way the agreement was structured is that when the new person moves into that home and sets up their water account, they are supposed to be notified of their ability to change their mind. Because we are pretty far along in that process, there's, a constrained universe of homes where the city under our settlement agreement is still obligated to conduct work. But again, I encourage folks to submit their consent forms to the city and ask them to do that work, because the contractors are still on the ground doing that work. And the city, I believe, wants to get the lead out of its own city. So it's in the city's interest to do that work while there's still federal money available. And I just wanted to make one other point about kind of the funding and the structure of the settlement agreement in this case. So the city of Flint was not the only defendant. We also sued and sought to hold accountable Michigan state officials who were de facto operating the city's water system while the city was under emergency management. And the court, in a ruling early in the case, found that the evidence we submitted showed that the state was in fact at that time operating the water system and responsible for compliance with the law. So the state is a defendant in the case, and all of the funding that is going to the lead service line removal program is coming through the state government. So the city of Flint was not responsible for funding this work. And that's because, of course, we recognize that we don't want the residents of Flint to ultimately pay for this work through, their city taxes and other things, through the city coffers. So the way it's structured is that the $97 million comes from the federal and state government, not the city.
And that's important. And it's important to note that even though we filed earlier this year for the federal judge to hold the city of Flint, the mayor and city administration in contempt of court for basically violating, making not hitting the federal judge's orders that he had, the dates, the inspections and everything like that. We're asking, because residents had asked at our town hall earlier this year, where are the teeth in the laws? And with these being environmental laws, it's not like they're criminal, it's difficult, but you guys, being the legal geniuses that you are, found a way to hold those, who are making the decisions, so the city administration and the mayor at this time, and who are responsible for those duties to, inform, inspect, and everything, to hold them in contempt of court, and potentially fines. I mean, and that's the thing, is that nothing has been decided. I mean, there's been no judgment from the judge. But also, like, we've seen, dollar amounts thrown out of what this could be, but the judge ultimately would be the one to decide what that is. And we don't want the residents of Flint to carry the burden and pay for something that the mayor and the city administration has failed to do. But we felt this was the only way, and I'll let you explain it better. Like, this was the only way for them to take it seriously and get the work done. And that's why we had to go back to court. But I'll let you explain that process a little, better than I can.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we have tried really for years, and we have gone back to the court 5 different times because the city did not follow the requirements of the federal court's order. And still the work was not done, and the city was missing deadlines. So last fall, we went back to court to hold the city and its mayor in contempt. And we did seek at that time a daily fine until the city fixed its violation and came into compliance with the court's order. And so again, the court has not ruled on that. But really, even if we were awarded that, the city is in total control of whether it has to pay any fines, and it can get out of any fines by simply doing what it's required to do and what it agreed to do under the federal court order. Again, there is no current requirement for any kind of fine. The court has not ruled on that issue. And since we filed that motion and put additional pressure on the city rushed to action to actually do the inspections that were at issue in that motion.
Thank you. That's awesome. And that also, just as we're going to start winding down today, I just want to remind everybody that it's been the dedication of Flint residents, of our allies, of our legal team, you guys, and the Natural Resources Defense Council and ACLU of Michigan, and everybody out there that's still speaking up. that's made all of this happen. Because if it wasn't for residents, and I get tired and I get frustrated, like, when I walk up and down my own street and it's, I'm one of the named plaintiffs, and like my house wasn't done and my street's not done. I mean, there's just, barrels and holes and stuff where there should be safe streets and sidewalks, and people still don't have their pipes removed, still aren't getting questions. So as much as I get frustrated with that, and I'm not angry at the residents at all, I'm angry at why isn't this done yet? And then you guys get to hear it with my long emails and my photos and my, my rants. But if it wasn't for the residents that were telling us this still isn't done, we're having this done, this is a problem, and also helping me by collecting these addresses, and you guys going, helping us go to court and talking to us what would be the best thing and listening to what the residents need, this would have been done already. This would have been done already. They would have walked away already. And that's in my opinion, that this would have just been swept under the rug already. So I just want to, one, thank you, because you guys, in 2020, when it was supposed to be done, you guys could have went, well, we did what we could, did the best that we could do, and and then walk away. And we've had that a lot. I mean, that's how I feel like the state government's done to us and everything personally, and the federal government even. It's been all this time, so we should move on. We're tired of hearing about Flint fatigue and all that. But I just want to thank you, being our legal team and our allies and our friend. Seriously, I always tell the story about in March 28th of 2017 when we signed. We brought the signed agreement, the settlement agreement between all the parties, and the judge approved the settlement that the work was going to get done. The state was going to pay for it. I was saying, on the court steps as we're walking away, I'm like, I'm really going to miss you guys when this is over. And that was six and a half years ago. So I'm just glad you take us seriously. You've not let, and so that I just want to point out to the residents that people do listen and people do care. And that even though we're tired and, we feel like we're going up against a brick wall, that we can still make things happen, and we still are. And yes, it's been a slow process, but, you guys have not stopped and the residents have not stopped. So I just want everybody to know, this has been an amazing team effort, and that, we're not giving up. The residents aren't giving up. You guys aren't giving up on us. And that as long as we are still speaking out, and as long as we're still taking pictures and reaching out to you guys and giving addresses and sharing concerns, and then reaching out to those in charge. So reaching out to Eagle about the wind funds, the approximately estimated 17 million that's still left on the table, federal money that was granted to us years ago that will expire December 31st if we don't do something. But also to make sure anybody and everybody who still has not had their service line inspected or changed, to email, to go to the website on the bottom of the screen right now, the City of Flint, get the let out, to, of course, put their, their opt-in form in, whether electronically or paper-wise, save copies of everything, write dates and times down. And for people who have not had their property restored, take pictures. Please reach out to the phone numbers and the information that is, on that website link right there, but also to you guys and to the NRDC, and of course to me too, because I do listen. It might take me a minute, but to go reach out to you guys to say, hey, this is serious. This is still happening. Nobody's answering my questions, because we want to make sure that we can get the let out and that the people of Flint are safe. And also, thank you again for addressing the public health aspect, and that even if someone's pipe is replaced, the construction is still ongoing. The city is still finding lead lines in the ground, and we still have issues with our rupturing main. So please use filters, and they are available at City Hall. So I'd say between 9 and 4, Monday through Friday. And you can also call, so this is Long Island Ville show, but to get it for filter and cartridge replacement and water test bottles, so you can still get lead and copper two tests every 6 months. So I say do one per season. But, even if your water test comes out 0 or whatever it might be, don't just be on the safe side, because construction and weather changes can shake things up. So you can call the Flint Public Health Navigators at 810-410-2020 for delivery if you can't make it to City Hall during business hours. but get your filters, get your cartridge replacements, get your test bottles, and please, just continue to stay safe. Don't just feel like how it, does feel sometimes that we don't matter, because we do matter. And yeah, so we got to keep pushing. And that Adam's question is, Sarah, I'm going to, because Adam knows my opinion on this subject, but in your opinion, what is the probable finish timeline, especially if residents keep pushing? Is there something that we can, hopefully maybe expect?
It's a good question. And I think on the excavation and replacement side, that was due August 1st. There's about 200 homes left, and we are pushing for that to get done as soon as possible. And it should be done before the winter weather this fall. The property restoration work is an ongoing conversation with the city about how fast they can finish the remaining work, and trying to get reporting from them on how much they've already done. But we are pushing as hard as we can to finish that work as quickly as possible, because, it's time. It's past time for the work to get done. And Melissa, thank you for those kind words. It's really been an honor and a privilege to work with this community. I've never seen fiercer, more savvy advocates who have drawn local and national attention to such an important issue and changed really the national conversation and national law around lead in drinking water. And it's just been a complete joy to work and fight alongside you for these really important public health protections.
So with that, we're going to wrap it up for today, but please share this out, everybody. Please share it with residents. Please share the information, the links. If you have questions, you can add them in the chat, or of course, reach out to me, or the email right there, which is the NRDC, which is, Sarah and her amazing team that's been with us since 2015, at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. For questions, checking on your address, seeing what's going on, especially if you can't get information from the city. So please let us know what's going on, because as long as we stick together, as long as we continue to fight together like we have, we're going to continue. Our settlement agreement, we made history. We were the first group of residents to sue a city and win, and a state and win, and to have them pay for it so it's not falling on our shoulders, right? So we've made history, because that's what Flint does, and we're going to continue to do that, and especially with you all at the NRDC and ACLU of Michigan in our corner, being amazing legal advocates for us and continuing to fight. So please share this out. If people have questions, please put them in the chat still, even if they're not watching this live, or reach out to any of the contact information you've got. But again, Sarah, I want to thank you for sharing your Saturday with us and this valuable, accurate information, so folks will have that, so they can maybe press back when they're hearing things that are not correct. But thank you, Sarah. I want to thank the Urban News Station for giving me a place to do this, and thank you all for spending your Saturday with us. And again, this has been In Flint, and I am your host, Melissa Mays, and please have a great, wonderful week. Please stay safe, and stick up for yourself, ask questions, keep pushing, keep doing what you've been doing. And we will see you guys next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time-ish. So thank you again for being with us, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week.